Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the scene.
Yo, what the fuck is up, Warped Tour? The state of the scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. Sam here with Margos.
It's good, girlies.
There's a lot going on this week,
Like?
right? Big tour announcements for My Chemical Romance and Linkin Park and the UK as a whole.
What's going on in the UK?
As a whole country, they made an announcement.
I didn't see this.
Two big new albums from Poppy and Linkin Park, which we're going to talk about a little later on.
We finally getting a new album from the UK too?
We're finally getting a brand new album from the UK, right? It's been like 12 years since they dropped, so it's big news. Are they still heavy? We'll find out.
The news.
So let's get right into it, Marcos. My Chemical Romance have announced the Long Live the Black Parade North American Tour starting July 11th in Seattle and running through September 13th with its final date in Tampa, Florida. The band have announced an eclectic group of support acts featuring Violent Femmes, 100 Gex, Wallows, Garbage, Death Cab for Cutie, Thursday, Alice Cooper, Pixies, Devo, Idols, and Evanescence, depending, of course, on which date you attend. The tour was announced and continues to be supported with mysterious teaser videos and a logo that fans say once reversed and translated from Russian says TPK, representing in theory the Paper Kingdom, My Chemical Romance's shelved fifth full-length album.
We're doing a lot of double duty with this.
What do you mean? What kind of double duty are we doing?
This is your Long Live the Black Parade announcement.
Yeah.
While you're also teasing the Paper Kingdom, which would lead me to believe that there are probably some ties there that maybe we previously didn't know about, it that they've incorporated since all of the leaked information, you know, that has come over the years.
Do you think they're all like misdirects? Like misdirect. Like we don't know which way they're coming because they're like sending us in every which way direction.
And they're known to do such things.
All right, here's my first question. Are My Chemical Romance flying too close to the sun by announcing a tour where they play the Black Parade in full, since the last time they did that, it ended the whole band?
No, it didn't.
It did.
They did Danger Days stuff.
Yeah, but they were so burned. They were so burned that it did eventually end the band. Like, they may have slowly faded out, but it was the rationale that they gave for being completely burned out on like touring and stuff.
My initial take here is that this is the most random victory lap, like the latest victory lap imaginable.
Okay.
Like, what do we do?
I mean,
like,
I guess I kind of understand what you're
cool.
saying. It's like if Slipknot announced like an Iowa tour, but wait, no, bands do this all the time. What do you mean? Victory laps is all bands fucking do anymore.
They do. The funny thing about like My Chem is like, where's the new fucking music is the problem.
Sure.
Like we already did a return tour. That should have been your Long Live the Black Parade shit. And then like now it should be all Paper Kingdom. What are we doing?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I do have a quick note about the tour poster, actually.
What is that?
Like, you know, all the support's neat and everything. This is like the first tour poster where it was very easy to tell what band was going to open for your date.
That's what being on a major label with a serious graphic designer on payroll gets for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not just some like intern for double duty on the social media.
Absolutely not, actually. They didn't do rocket science. They just like actually put the logo of the band under every date.
I'm about to blow your mind right now. I'm about to explode your fucking mind right now. That's good graphic design.
I know I'm saying that, but I'm saying it's not rocket science. Like, I'm giving flowers to people I shouldn't be having to give flowers to.
Sure, but that's because we've lived under the tyranny of bad poster design for like a decade now. Right. Yes, I'm with you.
And like we're going to get into it next.
No, we're not.
Next tour poster.
You don't even know where I'm going next.
At some
you mean
point,
next story? Next story.
The next tour poster somewhere is a lot of asterisks and plus signs. I thought we fucking did away with that. Every band should follow in the footsteps of My Chemical Romance.
I've been saying that for years now. Doesn't even matter what the subject is.
It applies to a lot of things, yeah.
My second point, imagine you spending somewhere around, I don't know, like $2,000 to get a hotel room, a flight, and tickets to When We Were Young Festival to see My Chemical Romance play the Black Parade in full. Smash cut. 3 weeks later, it's coming to your city. You got to be a little pissed, right?
But you're paying more money for it.
You got to be a little, maybe you don't have to get a flight. You don't have to get a hotel room in theory.
I've seen some
I would argue
resale
that it's
prices.
probably significantly less expensive. Yeah, okay.
I don't know if officially this is already sold out. I think it has.
I don't know if the whole tour is sold out. I know like LA sold out and they added another date.
Jersey probably sold out.
Based on what people were saying about like the ticket queue lines, and we'll discuss that a little later on, it would appear as if it would have sold out immediately. But I didn't see like an official post from My Chemical Romance, which was like the whole fucking thing sold out. Fucking eat our dicks with the greatest
My
band
Chemical
of all
Romance
time.
didn't even announce this tour on Twitter is the funniest thing.
They may be making a point about not posting on Twitter, which a lot of people are doing recently.
The mass exodus to Blue Sky, join us.
No, we're still on Twitter.
we're still there. I'm trying
We're
to-
still on Twitter. We're everywhere, as a matter of fact. Honestly, find us
on
wherever
Twitter,
makes
we're
you
on
happiest.
X.
But we derailed this whole thing. I want to talk about the support next. Now, this has got to be the most random darts thrown at a picture board of artists that we like I've ever seen
Yeah,
in
I'm
my
not gonna
life.
lie. My Chemical Romance tour support still pisses me off.
And why is that?
It's just so fucking random.
It feels too random, right?
Like, okay, we get like idols in Boston, and someone else is getting like Alice Cooper. This is whiplash to me. Just looking at who's getting who on what date is insanity.
Can you be honest with me? Given all your options here,
100
who
Gex,
would you?
100
Yeah,
Gex by a
I think I'm
fucking
with
long
you.
shot.
I think I'm 100 Gex with Evanescence right under
Yeah.
them, just because like that's one of those bands I would love to say that I've seen and I've never gotten to see.
That's my other problem with this shit, dude. And I'm gonna expand on a bigger problem. I'm gonna pull the curtain back, okay? New England is mistreated as far as touring goes. Dude, I've never listened to Idols. I'm sure they're a great band.
Yo, who
But,
can
like,
say you can't say
but
that
we
for
never
sure?
get anything fucking cool. We're gonna discuss this with Linkin Park too. But like, we could have had fucking Evanescence, 100 Gex, but no, we get stuck with a band I don't even know opening a My Chemical Romance show, and this happens all the fucking time with all these cool tours.
You know what's so fucking funny though? You know what's so fucking funny?
Someone comes to town, we get like Killswitch Engage opening, like cool, that's awesome.
I need you to calm down. What's very funny is that you and I were very excited
Would
to
have preferred
see
Bring Me.
Bad Flower at our date for My Chemical Romance's return a couple of years back, only to not be able to find parking and miss the set entirely. So like maybe this is karma. Like, do we even deserve I won't say a good act because
I'm not
again
gonna lie.
I haven't listened to Idols, so maybe they're like really great, but
I'm a little relieved that we're not getting Thursday again.
relieved you dislike Thursday?
I don't dislike Thursday, but I've
You've
I've
been
already
there,
now
you-
seen
yeah.
Thursday open for My Chemical Romance. I'd like to move on from that.
The problem is it's like it's the what could have been. It's like seeing I don't know, LA get fucking Evanescence and being like, God damn it.
100 Gex, that's the shit, dude.
Fuck you, California. Go fuck yourselves.
It's always like that.
How do you feel about the production of this announcement? Like these videos, which at this point in time, we can assume only correlate to the concert itself.
Sure.
It's a fucking, they're like movie scenes, right? It's like
Yeah.
camera swings in. It's like there are these actors and characters and this big like set design. And there's 2 videos so far. There was like the first one for the announcement. And then the second one, which has like 4 of these, like, I don't know, dictators, leaders, something or another, all sitting down to be sung to by an opera singer who has an incredibly distorted voice.
Can I be so fucking real with you right now?
I only ever ask that you be so fucking real with me in the now. Yes.
I remain unmoved by all of these teaser videos that My Chemical Romance likes
You're so
to pump
deeply
out.
ungrateful for everything this band has
Honestly,
done. So
fuck it.
deeply ungrateful.
I'm just saying, like, I get nothing out of watching a guy walk up some stairs, and it's like the into the crowd, like into the balcony with like the cheering and stuff like that. It's a cool production, but like I just don't get anything out of these characters. I'd so rather see, in place of actors, My Chemical Romance actually acting out these spots.
Interesting theory, because a lot of people seem to think that My Chemical Romance is, at the very least, in the second video with makeup on. and the makeup is so good you can't tell it's them.
Second video is so confusing. It's called like opera. Someone opens their mouth and lets out something operatic, and
So people are pointing out that there are some like Easter eggs that have been like brewing over the course of My Chemical Romance performing leading up to announcing this tour. So, for example, some of the characters are wearing outfits that Gerard Way himself has worn on stage.
saw that. I thought it was neat.
And that they played opera, whatever that like really short musical clip is, before their performance at When We Were Young Festival this year.
Okay.
So there is some sort of like synergy between everything they're doing and everything that they've done before and everything that will come in the future and so on and so forth. Now, ultimately, of course, you and I kind of circle back and go, well, I wish this was actually a music video, and I still really want a new song. And it's hard not to feel that way. I saw somebody complained on like the Instagram post under My Chemical Romance's announcement, and they were like, fuck all this, the 10 years waiting, and all we get is like a tour. And Mikey Way's like, hey, you shut your stupid mouth. I'm paraphrasing. He's like, we do it big. We only know how to do it big. So it's like, be patient. And like, we promise you this is going to be massive. And it's like, okay, what are you talking about? I know. Are you saying that, still the tour is going to be massive, or is there more here? Like, what's going on?
I think the most confusing thing throughout the 5 years that we've had this band back is just the pace at which things have moved.
With the caveat, of course,
I understand
that they exist in a the return all but exists in a post-COVID or mid-COVID.
It's a pre-COVID return.
Right.
Having to deal with these circumstances.
It's in the midst of COVID return. You know what I mean?
It was a pre-COVID return. It was 4 months beforehand.
So ask yourself if theoretically this tour might have been announced in 2023. Theoretically, right? Hard to say for sure.
Well, but even then, like, okay, COVID stunts a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What is stopping us from completing an album and having a bunch of shit ready to go? Like, what is the wait between? What have we been doing the past year? I know we stopped touring, and then like we had to wait a full year to like get this festival date at When We Were Young. But like, there's been a lot of time in between that I feel like you could have rolled out some teasers beforehand or anything at all. I don't know.
Fair
I know
points.
it doesn't take that fucking long to write a comic book, Gerard Way. Like, seriously? Again, I still think the problem with this band is Frankie Arrow's too distracted with
It's the LS Students thing. We got to break them up. We got to break them up. Marcos, did we get tickets? We'll get into that a little later. Linkin Park have announced the From Zero World Tour starting January 31st in Mexico City and running through to November with a final date in Brazil. An assortment of support was announced as well, featuring AFI, Architect's Grandson, Gene Dawson, JPEG Mafia, Paris, and Spirit Box, depending on which state you attend. In a Q&A on Discord, Mike Shinoda actually mentioned that they wanted to tour with My Chemical Romance, but unfortunately both already had made plans for bigger tours this year, or next year, which of course we have just gotten the announcement for both of them in the same week, which is pretty crazy.
Why the fuck wouldn't you scrap both your plans?
You're saying
once
that,
in a lifetime
like,
opportunity.
Yeah.
Both bands clearly like something to promote. Tour together. Scrap whatever plans you had.
Hard to say.
To me, it's an easy choice.
Hard
Sam.
to say. Like, we don't know. We don't see what happens behind closed doors
Linkin
with these
Park,
bands. We don't know all the rational.
Romance, fire your teams. Do it for the fans.
Fire teams, hire us. We'll make these decisions easily. No problem.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. We're stacking up support versus support. My Chem versus
Sure.
Linkin Park.
Right.
Linkin Park blows them out of the fucking water.
Absolutely destroys them. I mean, on the back of Architects and Spirit Box, it's absolutely no contest. It's insane. Marcos, there's a curious one here. How do you feel about JPEG Mafia?
Love it. Love it. I love that JPEG Mafia has like quietly infiltrated our scene.
Yeah. What else did we get that was scene related in regards to JPEG Mafia?
Toured with Knocked Loose on like a single date, I believe.
Okay.
Still cool. And then like just a lot of like great new and old, right? Like AFI, Paris, Spirit Box.
We get Paris at our
It's
date,
awesome.
which is exciting.
Again.
It'll essentially be a hometown show for them.
Which is cool. I love Paris. I haven't seen them live in a bit.
Wow.
But like then you look at the other bands on this fucking bill,
Sure.
and I think it would have been pretty fucking cool to have also seen some other ones. But maybe we should just go to multiple dates. I don't
Okay,
know.
let's do it again then. What is the support act that you would have ideally preferred at your date of this Linkin Park tour?
It is Spirit Box.
I think it's Architects for me, if I'm being
Yeah?
brutally honest. Yes.
Good for Architects, by the way. In the past year, or like collectively over like 2 years now, we'll have
Sure.
toured with Metallica
Mm-hmm.
on a ton of dates, and then toured with Linkin Park on a ton of dates, like 4 or 5.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, Spirit Box has done a very similar thing, touring with like Shinedown and Korn as well, where bigger rock act, the more legacy rock acts are taking these bands on the road with them. It is very exciting. It is really cool to see bands like Linkin Park or even My Chemical Romance, for example, and Metallica being like, okay, actually, it does make a Slipknot. It does make a lot of sense to bring out these up and coming, more often than not, metalcore bands to open for us on these tours. It feels like something that we waited so long to see, and it's finally gotten here. For so long, it was always like the same exact bands touring with each other, and now these worlds are starting to sort of like blend into one another.
I mean, it's happening to a degree in which it's not surprising anymore. Like, I see Architects and Spirit Box on this announcement, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense, of course.
Right, it's like suddenly you see like a Seven Dust tour, and they announce like, Fit for a King's opening for us. Oh, okay,
Right.
I understand where we're going for there. Tickets for this don't go on sale till I guess it'll be the week you're listening to this. So obviously no dates have sold out or anything along those
Duck and
lines.
MCR is crazy work.
Smart.
Waiting for those other paychecks to hit everyone's
Smart.
fucking bank accounts.
Marcos, UK's Download Festival has announced a lineup for 2025 featuring headliners Green Day, Korn, and Sleep Token. That's right, Marcos. 2 ostensibly legacy acts and first-time Download headliner Sleep Token, which is absolutely fucking massive. I mean, putting that into perspective, Bring Me the Horizon just headlined. It was either last year or the year before, and that was like massive for them.
After 20 years of being a band.
Right. 15, 20 years, whatever. Exactly.
20.
Like, it really felt like they had to, work up to it, and it was like a massive honor. And then suddenly, like, Sleep Token just swoops in, and like they're right there. Right. Like,
It really puts things into perspective.
Sleep Token's a band who's been around like what, maybe 7, 8 years tops at this point. So it's a really impressive jump for them. It's one that we've all been sitting here and watching, and it's not terribly surprising. But you look at some of the bands that they're headlining over, like A Bullet for My Valentine, that's fucking home court territory, or even a Weezer, who you would have to argue is equally as big as like Green Day. So for Sleep Token to get the nod here is absolutely huge. Marcus, I want you to take a look at this poster and tell me if there's any other names that jump out to you as being otherwise impressive or exciting to see on Download.
Is this like a reunion show for the Sex Pistols?
I honestly could not tell you.
Frank
that is,
Carter, obviously.
Frank Carter recently,
his
I think,
vocals.
called it a day on his project, which I think was like his name.
Frankie Rats and the fucking Rattlesnakes.
Yeah, it was like Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes or something along those lines. Yeah. Interesting that he's now fronting the Sex Pistols, at least on this one individual thing. Seeing Don Broco like way up high here is huge
Feels
for
good.
me. I absolutely love it. Obviously, seeing Spirit Box up that high is really big too. Lorna Shore is still doing the absolute most with the least amount of material I've ever seen a band do in the history of the
Insanity.
genre. Lorna Shore has taken one album and an EP and are essentially riding it into the fucking sunset. This is
Lorna
Pain
Shore-
Remains continued somehow. 3
Long-
years
long
after the
live
album
Pain
comes
Remains.
out. Yeah.
Study My Chemical Romance game a little too hard.
5-year tour on Pain Remains. That's the next thing we're getting from
Imagine
Lorna
that.
Shore.
I do kind of love the idea of like really stretching your material out for that long.
Yeah, like this band is just really content with the amount of crowds that they're pulling on the back of that album. And honestly, can you blame them? One that is deeply interesting to me here, Marcus, is that both Alien Ant Farm and CKY are playing. Now, for those of you who don't follow us on social media, you might not have seen that CKY was recently thrown off Alien Ant Farm's tour because the vocalist of CKY punched the vocalist of Alien Ant Farm.
So
So do
round
we get a
two-
rematch here? Yeah. Do
round
we
two
get our own Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson at Download?
remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
One note I wanted to make was Bullet for My Valentine present here.
Yeah.
Next year, obviously celebrating a really massive anniversary, and so are Trivium, and they've sort of been like intertwined lately. But Trivium's not on here.
You're saying weird. You're saying, yeah, Little Weird Trivium isn't on here. I wonder if
Right.
this is a case where like Download happens around the same time as maybe another festival somewhere else, and Trivium is already booked for that. Hard to say, right?
Possibly.
Like I don't know the dates exactly, but maybe Trivium's on fucking Welcome to Rockville.
You know what I'm a little surprised by, and it's I understand that like at some point you can have every band with a big name on here, like their own logo or whatever.
Okay. Where are you going with this?
Poppy not having a logo feels crazy. Like Poppy hasn't broken through and fucking.
So this is like tiered, right? So you got that first tier, it's your
tiered.
headliners. You get second tier, it's your like direct support, other stage headliners. And then you got a third tier, which is like notable names before you get to your fourth tier, which is just like everybody else who happens to be there that day.
And we've moved on from logos at this point, though, in this third tier.
You're right.
You got some huge names. Like, you know, the Ghost Inside is there. Northlane, Dayseeker. Like you mentioned, Alien Ant Farm, CKY. Eagles of Death Metal, a name I haven't seen in a very long time. But Poppy down there with them feels so like I don't know. Maybe I'm caught up in this week.
I mean, you can only have so
Poppy
many.
feels like the biggest artist in the world at the moment.
You can only have so many headliners. You know what I mean? So like sooner or later, it's like, hey, here's us encouraging you to maybe be a headliner next year or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, you want your name up on that poster with your fucking logo and everything. You got to do the work.
I like the visual of someone just like slapping like Sleep Token's name with like the pointer. You want to be them, you got to start at the bottom.
I think that's honestly kind of exactly what is going on here. Now, yes, does it feel a little disrespectful that Me First and the Gimme Gimmes are right there with Poppy? Yes. I do feel like we should have separated this out a little bit, but it is what it is. What are you going to do?
Like, Poppy's got a lot more motion right now than Alien Ant Farm is all I'm saying. Why are we in the same tier?
But like theoretically, you're looking at that list of bands and you're saying, okay, well, who are next year's? Like, who gets bumped up next year? Is like Dayseeker finally puts out that next album and absolutely explodes. Boston Manor fucking pops off. Northlane finally gets the bump. It's like it's almost like you're incentivized to see like, can you get knocked up to being a headline status band at a festival as big as Download?
Well, I mean, Sleep Token are evidence of that. One thing I wanted to add just on that third tier, crazy if you could scroll the fuck back down, Scott.
Sure, absolutely.
Mallory Knox back again, as we've discussed, but is this their return show or is that like a slam dunk?
That was slam dunk, I'm pretty sure. So I guess we now have multiple return shows.
Interesting.
It
seems like we're getting that band back full time.
Hopefully, that would be ideal, especially since they got the original vocalist.
What are we working with in this final tier?
Bro, I can't even make it up. Like for our distance from the screen right now, these names are so small. It's like I think this is the most I can scroll in right now.
Sim's cool.
Okay, let's see how Static Dress is on there. That's obviously a good one. That's very exciting.
Feels
like
low
that.
There from the UK.
Again, incentivize. You got to work your way up. You know what I mean?
We're next to Sleep Token in 3 years.
I see Loathen there. Obviously, that's another UK band that I feel like is, pretty. Speaking of bands riding out one album to the fucking sunset for the rest of eternity.
We're getting to the point. Not that we want to recycle headliners again, but like we almost have been able to work out like your Iron Maidens and your Metallicas, because like theoretically we're talking if Sleep Token now are getting the headlining, like they're getting knighted as headliners for Download, we do like a rotation of Sleep Token, Bring Me the Horizon every year.
Right. And like, does Spirit Box have that one song that finally puts them like over the top? Like, does Architects get to that point where it's like they're the next band who could headline Download? Like, it is a really exciting state of affairs, because it would be cool to see smaller bands finally reach that status. Marcus, in an interview with NME, Download Festival booker Andy Copping, in defending their choice of booking Sleep Token as a headliner, they got a lot of pushback because obviously old metalheads don't respect anyone that started their band before 2000
they never have,
or after
will.
2000.
You don't have to defend it. It will sell tickets. That is your incentive to book them.
Anyways, he implies that the band will have a new album before next year's festival. Marcus quote, "We're already on album number 3, and album number 4 should be out by the time Download comes around."
Lorna
That's
Shore
crazy.
rolling in their fucking grave right now too, hearing something like that.
What if Lorna Shore absolutely blew our minds and they put out like a double album next year, and they've just been like sitting on so much material? You know what I mean? It's like hard to say.
Pain Remains Deluxe. Have we already gotten that? I don't know.
Did we get Pain Remains Deluxe? That's actually a fantastic fucking question.
Or they do like the Color Morale thing where like for whatever reason both albums they released back to back had like the same name, No Hope, and then the other one was like Hope or some shit.
Right.
But like,
Hold On, Paid Eds.
It's a double album.
Sure.
Pain Remains.
Sure. Okay, that's the same name.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Well,
like, that's your double.
One side's paid. It was
right.
How do you feel about this maybe subtle hint that we are getting another Sleep Token album?
Yeah, no, again, I maintain that is their fucking job. Every band shouldn't wait 9 years to put out an album.
Okay.
They better have their 4th album out by then. And honestly, this is good for a number of reasons. It already feels like this band has been touring off of Take Me Back to Eden material a little too long.
Yeah.
And two, it means that we're not letting our foot off the gas as far as you have all this momentum, lock in, push a little harder,
Yeah.
and keep them at headliner status for the rest of their careers. Like, we are so close to witnessing a legendary run. I think we're like 1 degree from already being legendary, but like it could be historic in that sense.
I was trying to figure out how Vessel or Sleep Token would say we're locked in. Like, we've affixed our current fixation. I don't know. Like, I was trying to get there and I couldn't quite put it together. You know what I mean? Marcus, Void Division have called it a day, announcing one final Australian headlining tour to mark their farewell. They shared the following statement on social media. Quote, "After over a decade of devotion, intensity, and passion, we have decided that it is time to bid farewell to Void Division. As you can all understand, recent years have inspired a lot of reflection and granted us the perspective needed to make this decision. We have accomplished much more than we could have ever imagined with this band and experienced things we could have only ever dreamt of upon starting this journey together. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for the memories. And thank you for sharing the highs and lows that have truly shaped all of our lives for the better. We couldn't think of a better way to leave our legacy than with a final tour around Australia to celebrate the culmination of our career and the band at the best that it's ever been. This is what I'll leave behind. This is Void Division, Marcos. Sad day.
Heartbroken.
Yeah, this is a bummer.
And ultimately, I understand. I know there's some health stuff going on behind the scenes. That, you know, the one of the reasons.
It's not even behind the scenes. You could argue it's at the forefront.
It's the forefront. But, you know, obviously this band dropped off of that Ghost Inside support slot that they had that was supposed to kick off, you know, like next week or something. That whole tour's since been canceled for other reasons.
You wonder if Void Division got the email a little earlier than everybody else. You know what I mean? They're like, hey guys, before you book really expensive flights and all this other stuff, heads up, we're going to be canceling this.
I think it's that.
And then you got to wonder if that factored into their overall decision. It's like suddenly you have a tour coming up and then it completely falls apart, you know?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I with an announcement like this and already having these Australian dates booked, this feels like it's been happening in the background for a bit, to the point where, like, you name an album, What I'll Leave Behind, and it feels much more like closing a chapter than I initially in my mind was able to put together.
Yeah.
And I'm devastated, honestly. I think I've really enjoyed, you know, Void Division as a band for like the past like 10 years or whatever they said, but like really only started being enamored by them in like the past 3 years with the release of all those EPs that culminated in their Chronicles LP, which I think dropped like early last year. And then obviously the album that we get this year was really great. And I think we're losing one of the more promising, what I would still consider a newer act.
Right. One of the most forward-thinking, creative acts in metalcore, and it really is.
Yeah,
it's tragic,
stings.
honestly.
It's fucking painful. And I understand at the same time, like even outside of health stuff, like just being in a band is complicated and difficult, and that's never going to really change. But man, it fucking hurts every time a band rips a Band-Aid off like this and tells you, you know, fucking adios.
It's over. Yeah, I agree completely. Marcus, as always, every link in the description of this episode, including our socials, playlist, merch, and Discord. Subscribe to us on YouTube at SOTS Podcast YT and leave a thumbs up if you're watching the video version of this podcast. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave 5 stars. Dated discourse this week, Marcos. Trying to buy concert tickets fucking sucks. Another large tour brings with it the reminder that Ticketmaster, Marcus, is undoubtedly one of the worst platforms to buy concert tickets, and a cancer to music fans who dream of just being able to log in and buy tickets to a show that they would like to attend. Infinite queues. Dynamic pricing that change based on demand. Ticket fees that somehow inflate to the cost of an additional ticket price. Not to mention their inability to prevent bots and resellers. Marcus,
one thing I wanted to add,
go ahead.
These tickets going on sale at the times that they do, why is it always 10 a.m. like EST or PST?
Right, it's
right
all in the middle of the work. Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You got to be like, why aren't we selling tickets at 6 p.m.?
Exactly.
6 a.m.
Right.
Anytime other, I wonder if it's one of those things where it's just like, if you have a world tour, I could understand if you were trying to find like this perfect timestamp that like everyone in every territory might kind of be
There's a
awake
sweet
to buy
spot.
them.
But like then there's
But like
My
North
Chemical
American
Romance.
headlining tour, obviously we're kind of talking
Right.
about the Long Live the Black Parade tour right now, the new My Chemical Romance tour. Marcus, some fans shared their thoughts this past Friday while trying to purchase tickets to this My Chemical Romance tour. Temperance Alden over on Threads said, what happened with My Chemical Romance today? First Threads appearance. What happened with My Chemical Romance today makes me firmly in the camp that artists should not allow their tickets to be resold online. Return to tradition. Resellers, scalpers should be forced to show up to the venue day of, waste their own damn time, and try to sell them the old way. Marcos, Gabby Pabby Wabby on Twitter chimed in.
What do you have to say, Gabby?
To the people already reselling My Chemical Romance tickets for $10,000, hope you always have a pebble in your shoe that you keep stepping on forever. And finally, Marcos, Metal Eaters on Twitter said, I know you have the data, Ticketmaster. You should release any My Chemical Romance tickets that were immediately put up for resale after the sale. You know they're scalpers, and you're just letting them get away with it. Let fans actually get tickets to shows without going into debt. Marcos, final thought I ask.
You can't go to Ticketmaster.
Final thought I ask. Should Ticketmaster be killed?
Of course. I've got a bullet with your name on Ticketmaster.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go at Ticketmaster is the problem. Because
What do you mean you can't
who benefits
go
from
with
the
Ticketmaster?
resale?
What do you mean you can't go with
Who
Ticketmaster?
benefits from the resale? Who then again gets like ticket fees for every single transaction just rolling over permanently?
You're saying you can't ask the king to share his wealth.
Yeah, you can't say, hey, Ticketmaster, why do you enjoy making so much money? You should knock that off. They don't care. They've never cared about fans. We should be going to the bands who have contracts with people like Ticketmaster, Live Nation, whatever it may be, and demanding that they have a stipulation like that. And if
I don't know if bands can make. I don't know if bands can make demands like that. I want to say it was
Granted,
Oasis, but
I know that like
could
you have
be
to
wrong.
have insane leverage. So that's even more recently than I was thinking. But I could have sworn like someone like Metallica did this whole big thing.
It might have been Taylor Swift. Might have also like pushed back a little bit, but I'm pretty sure you can resell Taylor Swift tickets. So like I
Right.
don't know that even that works.
But there was something along the lines at some point where it was just like, hey, these are the prices and that's it.
I want to say it was Taylor Swift who tried to do something where they had like some sort of like fan program that could get like the biggest fans in line for tickets so that this didn't happen to them. But I want to say even that didn't end up working. But obviously you make a very strong point. It's like, I don't know that Ticketmaster is incentivized to ever fix this problem because they keep making money hand over fist.
They're not having a problem selling out these tours.
Right. They're certainly not going to cut their ticket fees unless somebody puts a gun to their head.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You're saying this feels like an
Ticketmaster is
unfixable problem?
Yeah, I don't know. Ticketmaster is 100% the problem, but I don't know how you get them to fix it by going directly to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, these are all bands we really want to go fucking catch. So
Marcus, were
it's
you
not
able
like-
to get My Chemical Romance tickets?
Yeah, we got a pre-sale code.
And how much did you relist them for?
Well, only 4,000.
Sure,
but it's
sure.
because
She wanted to cut the market, which is
Yeah.
smart. Yeah.
you know, I just wanted to get them off my hands really quick.
Uh-huh. You changed your
Us
mind.
being
You had a
ticket
heartbeat.
scalpers this whole time would be the funniest bit.
It'd be fucking crazy.
Um,
I feel like if I was a
Funniest
ticket
twist.
scalper, I would be in the wrong scene. Like, obviously, we do have bands where the ticket prices are enormous, but like, I feel like we would be covering and talking about pop music if that was the general like
more money
my
to be had,
goal
more money to be
overall.
had,
Yeah.
I like that's like another demeaning thing we could call
Reselling Chapel Rowan tickets for $20 billion.
like, you know how like tourists is a bigger thing now as far as like
What do you mean? What do you mean tourists are
an
a bigger
insult
thing?
towards someone who's like suddenly into like hardcore music or something like that. And
Oh wow, people have been calling me a tourist. I thought that was a compliment.
they're
this
buying
whole
gold
time.
hoodies and whatever. Like, you're
Yeah.
a tourist. Like,
Is
you're
this like
not-
another way
you're not
of-
about that culture? You know,
Sure.
you're a tourist. Calling someone a ticket scalper would be like another way of saying stuff like that.
Oh my god, we should just start doing that to randos
You
online.
fucking ticket scalper, like, get the fuck out of here.
Right, we'll just give them a really bad, overall like vibe.
Right.
Ticketmaster sucks.
We'll work on it. We'll workshop it.
If you want to support the show, consider becoming a patron for exclusive content, the ability to submit questions, and producer credits on all of our video content. Marcus, patrons also receive access to bonus podcasts, SOTS Deluxe. On this week's Deluxe, we talk big new tunes from 1OK Rock, Idola, and more. Patreon.com/SOTS podcast, $3 a month. You can ask us questions like Jacob, who wants to know, what's the most you guys have paid for a vinyl? How much would you shell out for a signed Linkin Park From Zero vinyl? Marcus, 2 separate questions. Start with the first.
I've paid hundreds for one vinyl.
You paid hundreds for a fucking vinyl? Can I guess?
Yeah.
The Weeknd?
No,
Okay.
but I think the one I have does cost hundreds now.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. Hey,
Ticket reseller.
let's go. Vinyl scalper?
Vinyl scalper. It was one of the exclusive like pop-up shops.
This is Bad Omens for sure.
Variant Bad Omens.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why I would have just guessed that right off the job.
I think a fan of the show was trying to move off of it, like just had like other shit to pay for, and I was like, well, I would gladly take that off your hands. And they gave me like the price, and I was like,
don't mind if I do.
I shouldn't do this. And then it happened, and here we are. So that's where I sit.
What album is it?
The latest one, Death Peace of Mind, but it's like the black cover.
Sure.
So like kind of needed it.
Where do you keep it at
I
your
think
house
it's signed.
exactly?
It is signed.
Like, do you keep it like tucked? Do you keep it in like that cabinet?
Had it displayed for a bit.
Yeah.
And now it's tucked away in the display cabinet.
I would
but
be
it's-
like almost
it's
scared
open
to
air.
even like personally like open it, like unwrap it. I feel like I wouldn't even want to touch. Like I would want to like seal it in like a glass case and just
Right.
never touch it again. Like for the level of money that surely it's worth more than you paid for it at this point, right?
I would guess by now, but I don't look because I don't fucking resell my shit, dude.
Okay.
I buy
All right.
shit to enjoy that thing,
Okay.
you know?
I don't think I'm anywhere close. I'm trying to remember how much it cost, but that signed Icy Stars vinyl I bought at the Bad Omens headliner. I want to say it was like
100. Hundo?
it might have been 80, it might have been 100 because I remember I also bought
You
like a long
tipped.
sleeve that day, and I feel like I paid like $100 for the full thing total. So I'm not positive exactly how much money it cost, but it was worth every penny. Marcus, how much would you pay for a signed From Zero vinyl? I'm so pissed because I ordered us 2 vinyl from the first drop, right? Like as soon as they announced it, I grabbed us a couple and was hoping it would be here in time for this recording. And it's scheduled for like Tuesday because they, I don't know, shipped it from Antarctica or some shit.
To answer that question,
Yeah,
how much would I pay for a signed LP
sure.
From Zero vinyl?
That's the question. Yep.
I think it depends on the situation. Like if someone is
The situation.
physically standing in front of me, like say we're at a merch booth and they're
Okay.
like, you want this?
You're saying how much could you be peer pressured into
100,
buying?
200, 300, like right. Like I could get peer pressured into like 200.
I think 200 would probably feel like the max for me
but
as
it's
well.
like if it's the band threw it online and they said, hey, bunch of copies of this signed $200, I'm like, I'm good.
That feels too rich, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to get me down into like the $75 range. Then I'm
Yeah, and
thinking
you
to
gotta get me
myself,
in like a
okay,
vulnerable
yeah,
state.
with shipping. Like maybe
Yeah.
I'm coming out to like 100 or something. Yeah, I feel you. Alex Fish asks, with the holidays approaching, are you guys Christmas music dudes, or what artists get you guys in the jolly mood? The jolly mood just sounds worse than it is. Like, I don't ever want... If somebody told me they were in the jolly mode, I'd be like, no, thank you. Take 3
Fucking
steps back right now.
Jail time for being in the jolly mode.
Exactly. That's how it feels. Marcus, but when you're looking to get your jollies off, what kind of Christmas music are you turning to?
Get my jollies off. I'm probably I'll listen to the classics for sure. Like some Mariah Carey, whatever. But like,
You got a favorite class?
what I'll tell you
Sure.
is like 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago or some shit.
I think it's 11 at this point.
I did buy I don't think it was like one of the last CDs I bought, but like at this point I was definitely I was not buying as many CDs.
You were on your way out, yeah.
But I did pick up a Seth MacFarlane Christmas album
What?
of like
It's not where I
32
thought you were
songs
going.
performed by Seth MacFarlane.
Does he do him in Peter Griffin voice, or is it like just him?
No, he does it in his own voice. So like one of the voices from Family Guy is definitely him.
Okay.
And I probably listened to it more than you would have expected, but like I did not find all of it that good. So I think there's just like a sweet spot of like, there's definitely like 7 or 8 really good Christmas songs that I could listen to on repeat.
On that album or in general?
No, in general.
Okay, wow.
But like you're going to cover all of them, right? And you got some Bublé or something. Like I'll listen to some Christmas songs, but I really only enjoy them at their most when it's like being played in a Christmas movie, right?
Settings got to be right.
Yeah.
I'm big on like the I fuck with Christmas music, but it has to be in like such entirely small doses. Like when I was working retail, I hated Christmas music with a passion, obviously, because it starts playing in like early November and you have to listen to it for 2 months. But we're talking like a week out from Christmas and like we're going to drive around and look at the lights or something. Yeah, crank this shit up, bro. Play every single classic under the fucking sun.
You're a mean one.
Yeah.
Mr. Grinch.
Hit me with every single one of those fuckers.
Yeah, top of your lungs.
Spooky asks, in terms of venue capacity, what is your comfort crowd size for concerts?
Honestly, a big fan of like the 500 to 1,000.
I think I'm kind of with you.
I don't like
there.
too small because then I become someone that the vocalist can like see not singing along.
Right. So I think we're kind of saying like venue capacity and the venue is full, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, if the venue capacity is somebody's backyard and it fills up at 20 people, like, I don't need that attention on me from the band.
But like, I don't know about too many.
I think I like a bigger crowd, honestly. I think I really prefer a bigger crowd. It can depend on the venue because it's like some venues are like better suited to bigger crowds where it's like, we went to that Chase Atlantic show and like we showed up last minute. It was absolutely packed, but our view was great. And I loved seeing a massive audience for that. So I kind of almost like, I don't think I'd go so far as like stadium, but if we're talking like the next step below that, like a nice 3K capacity, I love that shit.
Okay. All right. I'll side with you.
Bree asks, is there an international band that has surprised you this year and you ended up really liking?
Dexcore.
Dexcore is not a terrible one. So,
Dexcore is my answer. If
you follow us on YouTube, you can see that we put up a reaction video for Dexcore last week, and I think we have another one going up this week, and we are both really enamored with that band. I also want to shout out Bloodywood because I really, really enjoyed that new single that we got recently.
All right. I fuck with Bloodywood hard.
Is that enough examples? Dexcore, Bloodywood? I'm trying to
so.
think if there's anybody else off the top of my head this year specifically that we got that caught me off guard. This might have been the year that I discovered Jaluka, who I also really enjoy. Very solid metalcore band. I think that's all I've got. Andrew W. asks, what are your top 5 Linkin Park tracks? You think you can do this off the noggin, like top of the head?
I'm not, because I already pulled up Spotify
God
to be sure.
Bro. I'm going to do my top 5 without even like, I don't want help.
All right. I'm not offering any help, so.
Fuck, this is hard.
It's hard, right? That's why I pulled it up immediately.
I'm going to do like My December, Bleed It Out, Breaking the Habit, maybe like Leave Out All the Rest.
All right.
And then, I mean, I guess it's got to be like something from the first album, right? Fuck it, in the end, I don't care if it makes me basic.
Definitely with you on Minutes to Midnight. Or not. Yes, Minutes to Midnight. But why the fuck did I blank on the name too? Bleed It Out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you with a Faint.
Oh fuck! God damn it! I forgot Faint.
Yeah.
Scratch, Leave Out All the Rest. Drop in Faint. Who cares?
You did not mention Faint.
I forgot Faint.
I mean, Meteora's got like, I think it was Hit the Floor is really underrated.
Okay.
There's the one where like Mike Shinoda just like spits for 2 minutes. That goes nuts.
I really need to go back and revisit all those.
I'm gonna give some love to some stuff on 1,000 Suns, honestly.
1,000 Suns was a banger.
Like, just in general, the Catalyst is definitely like, that's that bitch.
Yep.
And I met you with One More Light.
One More Light is a very novel choice. I like that pick there.
I think that was 5.
I think The Hunting Party is the only album where I can't pull like a single song off of there that really moved me. I would love to go back and listen to that album again.
Curious
and see how
if
I
it hits
feel
now.
about it. Yeah. Sam Cohen asks, so stoked to hear what you guys think of Poppy and Linkin Park coming up next. And all of the new things. Question this week. How long does it usually take you to edit an episode of SOTS?
Well, it takes me usually, I like to really dive into my work and let it consume me. It probably takes me about 2 to 3 days at least to edit an episode. Sam, how about you?
If I got into a car accident later this evening, Marcos wouldn't even be able to get this last episode out.
Show.
Like, you couldn't even get the final episode out. Generally, it takes me anywhere from like an hour and a half to 2 hours max. It depends how long the episode is. I usually play it through from start to finish, just at like 1.5 speed, just to make sure that like if there was any audio glitch or anything that I catch it. And then, go and drag and drop all the different song clips and like, our intro and our outro and stuff like that. It's not a terribly complicated process. It's just a bit of a tedious one.
Easier now with the tools you have and the way that this show is made than it was, say, 5 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. But I've also become really efficient at it after doing it for fucking 10 years at this point.
Well, I guess the reason I ask is because the way that we present the show is a lot different now, too. Like, we film in, like, OBS and YouTube, and that's where we get our audio from, as opposed to in the past just on, like, GarageBand.
I think the difference is that now that we have a video component, the post edit takes me longer because I'm uploading on different platforms, and then waiting for those uploads to finish and blah blah blah.
Yeah, we're not counting uploading
completing
speeds.
Blah 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 blah. Marcos. Oh shit, we do have one more question. Caillou asks, ever bought tickets to a concert months before and realized days before that you had, and now it's a surprise sold out concert you get to go to?
We must have.
I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever forgotten that I bought tickets. I think I've forgotten to buy tickets, which is the opposite problem. And then it's sold out.
Ago,
yeah. But not like I'm surprised. Like I know generally a concert's coming.
Especially not like days in advance. There's definitely been times where like I'm starting to see the band post like, hey, last tickets. And then I go and like, did I buy tickets for this? And I have to like check and see if like Ticketmaster, like, oh, okay, no, I did buy tickets at some point. Okay.
Like it's weird, yeah, because we have like the opposite problem, which is like you just kind of like forget if you ever bought tickets to it, which actually no is exactly what they're saying.
Right. So sort of.
Wait, so you're saying yeah? I feel like you're saying yeah now.
There's definitely been times like we're like, hey, did you ever pick up tickets for Bullet for My Valentine, whatever? And then I'll be like, yeah, I must have. And you search that name in your text messages, but they don't show up.
Right.
And it's like the last time we talked about that band was like 4 years ago. And it's like, what? And then you check your email and it's like, oh no, okay, I did buy tickets. Okay. That's a relief because it's sold out. So yeah, this has happened, Caillou. Great fucking question.
It's a great fucking question. Marcus, let's review some big new albums.
The Breakdown.
Starting with From Zero by Linkin Park. Key bullets here at the top. Linkin Park is a legendary rock outfit from Agoura Hills, California that formed nearly 3 decades ago in 1996. First under the names Zero and then Hybrid Theory before officially becoming Linkin Park as we know them in 99. From Zero is the band's 8th studio album. It released the 15th of November. The band have been signed to Warner Bros. Records for 25 years since 1999. That's who they put this album out with.
Sign that contract in blood.
Also,
25 years is like, it's just like you're never getting out of that.
It's also out on like Machine Records or whatever, which is the band's imprint label through Mike Shinoda. So that's still
okay.
A thing
So
too.
So they are intricately tied to Warner Brothers.
The album, of course, too, self-produced by the Mike Shinoda, the band's primary songwriter, co-vocalist, and multi-instrumentalist. From Zero marks the official follow-up to 2017's One More Light, which was the band's final album to feature 2 longtime members, the late great Chester Bennington, their vocalist, and Rob Burden, drummer and band co-founder, who opted to not return for the band's reformation in 2024. Let's stay on reformation. Following Chester's passing in 2017, the band went on an indefinite hiatus, which they've never actually called a hiatus, but it's what it was. Unsure if they would ever return again. In recent years, they've ramped up their activity, releasing anniversary editions of their oldest albums, a singles collection last year with previously unheard demos. The band finally returned to the stage 2 months ago, only 2 months ago, their first time since performing a Chester Bennington tribute concert at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles on October 17th of 2017.
October 27th of 2017.
Yes, my bad. The first performance in nearly 7 years, a 16-song set live streamed to tens of millions of fans, would introduce us to new singer Emily Armstrong of Dead Sarah, and new drummer Colin Britton, who had previously written and produced for artists like Swaco, Basement, 5 Seconds of Summer even, 1OK Rock, and Papa Roach, just to name a fucking dozen.
Some big artists.
On the day of its release, From Zero sat atop the iTunes top albums charts in like 32 different countries, including Belgium, Cyprus, Sam, Norway, Ukraine, and believe it or not, even the United States of America. Again, just to name a handful.
I'm going to throw the challenge flag and assume it's Cyprus, but we'll keep moving.
I think it's Cyprus.
Really?
I believe it's with 99.2% certainty Cyprus.
Comment below your thoughts on the new album from Linkin Park as well as your pronunciation of Cyprus.
Since their releases barely 2 months ago, From Zero's lead singles, The Emptiness Machine and Heavy as the Crown, have amassed a combined 372 million streams
Insane.
on Spotify and claimed the number 1 and number 2 spots on nearly every rock chart you could possibly name. As of this recording, the band claimed just shy of 55 million monthly listeners on Spotify as well.
They're also in the top 5 most streamed artists in Spotify Global right now, which is crazy.
Top how many?
Top 5. I believe they're number 3.
Damn. Some words from Mike Shinoda. Before Linkin Park, our first band name was Zero. This album title refers to both this humble beginning and the journey we're currently undertaking. Sonically and emotionally, it is about past, present, and future, embracing our signature sound, but new and full of life. It was made with a deep appreciation for our new and longtime bandmates, our friends, our family, and our fans. We are proud of what Linkin Park has become over the years and excited about the journey ahead. From Mike, again, regarding the decision to move forward with Linkin Park after all these years via Billboard. Linkin Park is part of my DNA. Everybody's got a core identity diagram, like, this is who I am. If you were to sit down with a piece of paper and write down the things that make you you, that's a crazy exercise when you think about it. It's things you love to do, your family, your friends, your spouse, whatever. The things that make you you and your beliefs, right there in the middle of it is Linkin Park for me. There are many other things too, but to have that one out was painful. To have it back in, there's nothing like it. There never will be anything like it. I got goosebumps just fucking reading that. Mike on new members, Emily and Colin. The more we worked with Emily and Colin, the more we enjoyed their world-class talents, their company, and the things we created. We feel really empowered with this new lineup and the vibrant and energized new music we've made together. We're weaving together the sonic touch points that we've been known for and still exploring new ones. That's all I really grabbed for this one because I think we'd have plenty to say. I did also want to make one quick note that the band made a fairly big deal the last album cycle of finally having a title track, which they never had in the past. So One More Light, title track off of that same name record. And the band was quoted as saying it was the heart of the album. We did get a title track again on this record, which serves as the intro. And I guess you can view it in a couple of different ways, right? So From Zero acknowledges this is the reset button. This is the fresh start. It technically kicks off the album from second zero as well. If that's what you would call that, I don't know. And then, again, also serves as another title track, which this band has never had before, previous to One More Light. So it's just very interesting that we get a second one so soon after.
It also feels like there's a level of narrative there where it almost breaks the fourth wall by acknowledging the From Zero and this band's legacy and where they came from and where they started, but also this idea that they're starting over again.
Yeah. Sam, you've been with Linkin Park, maybe not from zero, but maybe even like the Hybrid Theory days, definitely the start of the Linkin Park days.
I was there on day one.
Yeah.
I was there on day one.
I remember leading up to this when you talked about wanting to revisit a lot of the older Linkin Park albums. Do you have a chance to do so?
I didn't, unfortunately. And I think
is it just because it's all like intertwined with all of your brain cells at this point where you hear it in your head 24/7?
This is just another case of my ambitions being higher than my capability. And well, it's something I certainly would like to do. You know, we were just talking earlier about how, I'd love to go back and listen to The Hunting Party again and just kind of see how that album hits me after all of these years.
I'll speak on that a little bit, though, as far as not Hunting Party. I actually don't think I've ever listened to that record. which I feel bad about a little bit, knowing that there's, 17 whatever more songs with Chester Bennington on it that I haven't heard.
Right.
So not my proudest moment as a fan of this band, but what I will say is I've spent a lot of time with
For
their
what it's
older
worth, I'm pretty
albums.
sure like the most recent like greatest hits album also practically
ignores it.
ignores
Yes.
the Hunting Party as well. So it's not like you exist in a silo different from a lot of Linkin Park fans.
Not super recently, but like within the past couple of months, especially leading up to like when Linkin Park launched their whole countdown thing.
Before they then relaunched it.
Exactly. So in that window, I returned to One More Light, realized my feelings about it kind of were the same as always, which is the album is okay at best with a number of good songs on it. One great one in particular in that title track. And then Hybrid Theory, Meteora, I almost called it.
Absolutely destroying that word.
Minutes to Midnight, and what's 1,000 Suns too. I actually, so I mean, all the big ones, I think I went back and touched and had a wonderful time with all of them, and just had an opportunity to deeply appreciate an era of the band, a chapter of the band that was fully closing. And I guess that's kind of where I want to go with the discussion next, at least to get it out one more time again before reviewing a new record with a new vocalist, in that the love for Chester's not going anywhere. It never will. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about listening to this project without Chester as the face of it. And I understand that, and, do what makes you feel comfortable. But personally, will forever miss Chester, one of the greatest vocalists of all time. But I did miss Linkin Park, and I miss the rest of that band, right? Mike Shinoda, all the other longtime members. And I was itching for a return to just hear what this band might do. And obviously you had a very long build up with all of those anniversary stuff, the demos, paper cuts, all that stuff. So by the time Emily Armstrong finally was announced as, your new vocalist, we got a new drummer as well. I'm not going to lie, I was really excited about that. And here we are. And From Zero's finally out a short 2 months later. Like, this isn't 3 years ago all this stuff came to fruition and we're finally getting the album. Everything is still immediately fresh.
Right. In the span of 2 months, we've been introduced to a new version of Linkin Park with a brand new singer, with an additional new member on top of that.
They've only played 7 shows, I think, if that.
But still, in the course of 2 months, we've gotten this band playing 7 shows, dropping 4 music videos, releasing
topping the charts,
a brand new album, right? All on the back of reintroducing the whole project with new members. It's staggering, I think, once you frame it and look at it from a distance, how much has truly happened in such a short span of time. Marcos, I have so many thoughts about this album, and they're relatively scattered. I'm curious if you have an overall direction you'd like to take this discussion in. Or if you...
I don't, but I have an opening to the thing to share, in that I think the band did a really wonderful job with the singles they chose for this record. I think The Emptiness Machine is actually the best song on this record, and that is not a diss by any means to any of the other material on here, but as far as an introduction to this new chapter of the band, first song they perform back after 7 years, first single we get to hear in general, and I think it's an incredible choice.
Can we talk about that specifically? Not only was it so clever to utilize that as the first new song that the band showcased because of how it's structured and the way that it opens strictly with Mike before inviting Emily.
In pretty late into the song, like a minute in.
In pretty late into the song, right. But it sort of works from that same point of view on the album as well, where it kind of like slowly eases you into Linkin Park with Mike Shinoda's voice before bringing in the strong contrast and the brand new voice that is Emily.
I actually didn't even pick up on that with as far as just placements on this record.
So it feels like the track listing is also well considered, not just in the case that was a single, not just in the case it was how they first presented Emily into the band as well.
And then you get Heavy as the Crown and Over Each Other, and they're very two different versions of this band. Heavy as the Crown, a more familiar Linkin Park. You have, these electronic highlights that really, I don't know, very nostalgic.
And it's
right?
aggressive and up-tempo. It certainly feels like something out of maybe in the realm of the Meteora era, like right after Hybrid Theory, maybe right before Minutes to Midnight. It's in that general frame, and then Over Each Other, you're right, is the perfect counterpoint to that. It's one of the more softer, more ballad songs, but it's something that like Linkin Park was very much known for, right?
But it's also got like some of my favorite moments of these new singles, strictly speaking. And even one of my favorite moments on the album, I guess, too. And like the buildup of like that drumming right before you get like to the chorus, and just like how Emily's voice soars. It's such a great vocal talent display. Like Heavy as the Crown again, like, okay, cool. So Emily can scream. That's well and good. But I don't walk away from that song thinking, wow, Emily's a fucking killer vocalist. I walk away from Over Each Other and think to myself, like, damn, Emily fucking rocks.
And I also like a lot the choice of having a song that is singularly Emily as the vocals.
Yes.
Because I feel like it's a real strong vote of confidence from the entirety of the project to let her carry the entire song by herself.
Yep. And then Two-Faced was a very late single, but
nearly day and day. It dropped like a couple days before the album came out, right? Yeah.
And just another great choice overall too. And granted, yeah, you could have threw a dart at this track listing and you land on Cut the Bridge or Stand, and those are good singles. But I did want to take a moment to highlight that I think the ones that we ultimately did get were a wonderful representation of this record and some of the best material on it. And
it captures the spectrum of what Linkin Park presents on this album, but also a little bit over the course of their career.
What I was happy to say is that the rest of this album is pretty damn good too.
It's almost like I'm not saying, I think I'm a natural pessimist. So for me, so much of this felt almost too good to be true that the closer we got to the album, I was like, okay, well, like, you know, temper your expectations a little bit. Like
dreading the misstep.
Right.
Yeah. That dread
enjoy what we've gone to this point, and if for all intents and purposes you like a couple more songs in this album and you don't like a few of the other ones, like it simply is what it is. I think what wowed me overall is how much I truly enjoyed this record from start to finish, because I didn't think overall that we could possibly be that lucky.
Yeah. You know? And again, that's barely even like a commentary on like Linkin Park. It's almost just like, man, getting an album this good from a major label band in 2024 doesn't always feel real.
There's so many caveats, right? It's like, okay, Linkin Park hasn't been around for the longest time, right? You'd argue, I guess I would personally argue, I think many fans would, that their better material is their earlier records and not so much their most recent ones.
Of course, respectfully, just not coming off of their strongest work.
Mm-hmm. They also have a brand new makeup. Obviously, Chester is no longer with the band. Obviously, they're introducing a brand new vocalist. It's almost like
so much
there's
working
a steep
against
hill
them
to climb. Yes, exactly. And it's like you compare them a little bit to their peers, Marcos. I want to think about, like, we reviewed earlier this year the most recent album from Green Day, and unfortunately, I did not enjoy that for even 1 millisecond.
No.
I think about the most recent album from Slipknot and how much of I think.
Can I stop you there? I didn't enjoy that one for even a millisecond either.
Yeah. But you're right. That is exactly my point. You think about, for all intents and purposes, Linkin Park is a legacy act. Now, granted, this, in being an introduction or a reintroduction to the project and almost a fresh start, feels like it does give them a little bit of separation from a lot of those other artists. But still, you don't expect to get a band. What's ironic is I think the next closest comparison for me personally is Blink-182. And a lot of that is on the back of bringing back Tom DeLonge and having this almost renewed fire and renewed passion within the band. And I think you can feel it from that project. And I think you can feel it from this project too, is that there's a level of excitement around not just the fan base, but from the band themselves.
Yeah.
And it carries over into the material.
Yeah. That creativity just, can't be denied. Ultimately this album is really fucking solid. You can really talk about any of these songs and have great things to say.
I have a lot of thoughts about these songs, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I wrote down kind of like, so like I said, I wrote down like my just overall thoughts and feelings as I listened to this album multiple times over the course of Friday. One thing that I really enjoyed was the small touches of humanity that are spread out throughout the album. So obviously we have that intro, and it feels like
Emily coming to the realization as to what From Zero actually stands for.
Was that Emily? I honestly wasn't even sure if that was Emily.
Listen, have only been familiar with Emily for 2 months, so I can't say with 100% certainty hearing someone's talking voice if that was them.
Right.
To me, it seemed like it was probably Emily.
Right. And so they're asking, oh, what's the meaning of From Zero? Is it this? Is it that? And then it's like, oh, this moment of realization. Right.
Yeah. And then like a cool cut too. It's like, oh, like the first name of the fucking, and like it's cut.
Right. And then we immediately go into the emptiness machine. And then even to the dad joke level of screaming pants
Mike
in
Shinoda
Casualty
is fucking...
The thing is that he's so endearing, and I feel like little moments like that make the band feel a little more real and a little more personable.
I forgot what song it was, but it's like he ends this track with like, that's what it is, and he fucking rolls his what somehow.
I want to say it's two-faced because I want to say it's like, I want to say they even kept it for like the music video, and it ends with them like him and Emily like looking at the camera and talking together. Marcus, obviously you mentioned at the top the Emptiness Machine being your favorite song in the album still. I think it's an incredible, brilliant introduction to the new vocalist, and I think that's why it has so much staying power and adoration that even with all of these new songs that have come after, it still feels like that bitch.
One quick note on this, not to derail the conversation at all, I struggled a lot with, and I had trouble getting out of my head with it, but I looked at this album through the lens a little more frequently than I wanted to, as far as, will I consider this timeless? Like, do I still think about this song 20 years from now? Like when a song like Faint comes on, I still get goosebumps. Like, is a song like, Two-Face going to come on and I get goosebumps? I don't think so, but like,
that's an insane way to put on this album so early on. That's such an insane way.
Right. I know. But the more I thought about it, I'm just like, how it was initially presented to us with all the mystery, I think the Emptiness Machine is going to have that staying power. At the very least, that song itself.
I think I feel the same as you right now. That it has such potential, right? Mike Shinoda, Marcus, might be one of the biggest anomalies in the rap metal scene, period. For all intents and purposes, his style is like incredibly dated as far as modern hip hop goes, but it still feels so unique to him that it almost skirts the need for comparison.
Yes.
Like, it's not rap, it's Shinoda. So it becomes like its own thing entirely. And Two-Face is a really great showcase of how his style is so well defined specifically to suit his voice.
Lyrically too, I think Shinoda continues to be one of the best of the best. And it's not always like poetry or anything, but just listening to the way Mike Shinoda makes you hang on every word when all he's talking about is someone being like a liar, there's so much power, and like the confidence in his delivery and everything it's magnetic.
He's very good at putting like this emotional inflection on his voice, right? Which I think then pairs well with Emily Armstrong, especially because of the contrast of generally what their presentation is. Him being more of the rap / clean singing, and her in instances throughout the album being that very strong, more ferocious contrast. Mm-hmm. Heavy is the Crown, Margos. We mentioned earlier, Meteora flavor. It feels like that song literally evaded the hands of time. Like, it's truly iconic how this band is able to rip a sound out of 2003 and unleash it in 2024 like a single moment hasn't passed.
Part of me feels like, of all the demo stuff they've sat on and released, like the beginning bit of Heavy as the Crown is like that synth is what they've kept from 2003, that
right, like they kept clicking into folder after folder after folder. It's like Linkin Park sounds, then years, and then like 2003.
They stumble upon that and just like, we need to unleash this on a brand new song.
I think of the singles, Heavy as the Crown is actually, for me, a bit more my style than the Emptiness Machine overall.
Interesting.
I think for the most part, Marcus, Linkin Park proved after like a decade of every rock and metal band under the sun attempting to mimic their style that no one can actually hold a candle to the real thing. And it shouldn't be surprising, but somehow 25 years later, Linkin Park still does Linkin Park infinitely better than anything that's been conjured up in their wake is marginally surprising. You know what I mean?
Especially with new parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And massive shoes to fill. Not that there were really filling shoes, and I think that was a conscious thing where at no point is Emily trying to sound like Chester or
But the point of
anything
comparison
like
was
that.
going to be inevitable.
Yeah, of course.
And it continues to be inevitable. I can't share a single thing about this band without people like remarking on where currently they stand as far as their adoration of Chester versus Emily. Like, they feel the need to speak it, and as long as they try to do it respectfully, I generally don't push back too hard. But you can't untie them from one another. You know, you can't, and I don't think anyone would ever want to untie, Linkin Park from Chester Bennington. So it's like, if anything, I think it's a lot of kudos to Emily to step into a role where the criticism is going to be hot and heavy constantly and never ending.
Yep.
Over Each Other and Casualty, Marcus, I think exemplify how well Emily is able to mold her voice to fit the dynamic of Linkin Park across the spectrum. So we haven't talked a lot about Casualty. That song actually got played live before the release of Two-Faced as a single, before the release of the album. So it almost gave the impression that this was going to be the next single from the band, though it wasn't. But a part of me kind of wish it has, because it is far and away the quote-unquote heaviest track on the album.
They did a great job of teasing this one, admittedly. Obviously, you Get Over Each Other, and that song ends on Mike Shinoda doing like the dad thing where he's like, all right, Emily, you gotta, let's get those screaming pants
buckle
on.
Up and screamos and let's go.
Tie those screaming boots on.
Right, precisely.
And admittedly, like, and probably against my better judgment, I got excited for Casualty when I like looked up this track listing to see what song was going to play after Mike Shinoda saying to put your screaming pants on.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that one circled on the fucking board from the moment, I pressed play on this record, and it came and it fucking delivered. I was super happy with it. And it is like textbook Linkin Park, which is kind of crazy to say because it's not like we had been getting textbook Linkin Park for like the last 3 or 4 albums.
That's what's so fascinating about this record, is that everything in theory feels like textbook Linkin Park, only with a slightly different presentation.
Right.
It cannot be understated how much my serotonin exploded off the charts when Johad started scratching in Two-Faced.
Yup.
Like, it reawakened something inside of me that had been asleep for more than a decade.
It did more good, or it did more damage than it did good, Sam, because then I'm listening to this album and I'm like, we could have added scratches here and here and here, and this entire thing would have been improved with scratches all over.
That's what makes it so impressive. It's like because you are reserved, because you don't give it, you don't over.
One song heavy on the scratches isn't enough. We should have gotten 2. That's my only complaint.
Their ability to hold back is impressive.
Not enough Han on this album.
I'm almost positive there's a little bit of scratching in Heavy as the Crown as well.
There is a couple. There's definitely like it's around, but that's the song where you definitely hear it the most.
Right. Overflow feels like probably one of the most novel tracks on the album. And I enjoy its flavor of positivity and protest. It's definitely a song that feels more like the latter half of Linkin Park. Maybe like the One More
Light, 1,000 Suns.
Yes,
I could have seen a song like this on 1,000 Suns too. It's definitely if I do venture a guess, it's not everyone's favorite version of Linkin Park, but I always like when they do little tracks like this one. And
where I think it works on this album so much is because you have so much variety across this album that, like, if you want something heavier, you have that here in spades as well. So it's not like you're sitting there craving something that isn't delivered. So within that, then what you actually have is an album that is diverse, and that makes it more interesting. It can be difficult to try to serve all your fan bases, but I think in some capacity, Linkin Park succeeds in that on this record.
I also like that while she's not a big presence on the song, when Emily is singing on Overflow, it's a highlight. Really just there for like the chorus.
This band does a really great job of navigating when and how to intersect both of these voices with one another.
Which is kind of crazy too, because I'm sure there's a balance of, or like, while recording this, I'm sure there's you're writing down on the board like, okay, well, we can't have too much Emily or not enough Emily or things like that, or how do we replicate that back and forth that we would sometimes have, or all the times really have, between Chester and Mike without it sounding too forced in any way. I really think they threaded that needle in a really impressive way.
Right. And
top to bottom.
And it doesn't feel bland. It's not just like, oh, Mike's going to do the verses and then Emily's going to do the chorus.
It's not predictable.
It's pretty much that for
means.
10 Strong's. Like, not at all that. Another fun fact that somebody on Twitter shared with me, and I forget their name at the moment, and I absolutely apologize, but Teddy Swims has a co-write on Overflow, which is just a little fascinating
Should I
nugget
know
there.
who Teddy Swims?
Teddy Swims. So the funny thing is, Marcus, is that I feel like Teddy Swims has gone on to be sort of like a very popular, like country-ish rock artist, but you might remember him as fronting a project where Michael Bond was the drummer for a little bit before it ended up like separating. Absolutely not ringing a bell in any capacity
Not at
for
all.
you. And I think he's had features in our
I'm
scene
usually
as
pretty
well.
decent with this stuff too. Honestly, I heard that and thought of that there might be a Black Bear co-write on it. I like immediately pulled it up and I was looking for the Matt Musso co-write.
You heard the song and you okay, all right.
Yeah.
For a second I thought you heard me say Teddy Swims and you thought Black Bear.
No,
and I'm
no,
like,
no, no,
interesting that's what that reminds
As
you
far
of.
as co-writes on that song, I was looking for Black Bear just as far as like
It felt like the style was
how
reminiscent of something he might
Shinoda
do.
was like saying things. I was like,
Mhm.
that's like it felt at times like that might be, and they've
You know who it reminds me a lot
collaborated,
of, to be honest, is Grandson, who, coincidentally is opening and has opened for this band already this year.
Really?
Opening on their next tour. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Grandson, to be honest with you. Grandson has a similar like flow to like a Tyler Joseph from 21 Pilots, who I think isn't terribly far off from this either. Stained, Marcus, I think, has one of my favorite lines on this whole album. Quote, "And someday your hands will be too red to hide the blame," which I really enjoyed. You mentioned earlier that like the lyricism on here is generally good while not being like deeply poetic. I think oftentimes it can be kind of simplistic, but not in a way that I would deride it for, just in a way that I think it's been like finely tuned so that like it's just subtle enough, but for the most part, we all understand what's being said here. Like the
Right.
metaphors aren't too deep for anyone to not be able to grasp what generally what any of the songs are about.
I guess to expand on more what I meant is just it is sometimes bewildering to me how much I hang on every word that Mike Shinoda has to say when he's not actually saying anything that
And you're saying it's delivery is what's doing that for you. It's how he delivers it. That
it is
really sells
of
it.
course it's delivery, right? But it's also just like the way that things are phrased are not how I would phrase them too. So like there's that combination of things. So like I'm just trying to think of good examples of lines, but just the simplicity is 100% one of the driving factors into why I'm so enamored by it.
But I don't think it's just Mike Shinoda, because there are lines that Emily delivers that I think are really good too. I think about Over Each Other, and there's a line in there. It's like building skyscrapers on shaky grounds that I really enjoy.
Yeah, no, 100% I like that line. But there's like what track was it on? I think it's the lyric goes something about how it's Cut the Bridge, I think, and he's just talking about how someone is like they're pointing fingers at everything but themselves or something, and it's like just the way he's phrasing things is just interesting to me.
Did you notice that a little bit as a theme across the entirety of the whole album?
A little bit.
It feels as if it's pointed.
I'm very curious and I know we'll probably never get it, but what fueled a lot of the lyricism on this album?
That's what I was
for
thinking as
sure.
well, because they're like, I gave you everything I had, two-faced, like
Pointing your
they feel
fingers-
direct at someone without like ever calling them out by name.
Like I think the line was directly like I miss the clues, pointing your finger at everybody but you. And it's like just the flow that Mike can get in is so impressive.
Yeah,
and again,
agreed.
not saying a whole lot, but it's also like you're saying, you've refined it to such a simple degree that it on its own, stands the test of time, I guess, or whatever it might be. Just impressive all around.
Stained for me feels like the deep cut from this album, the sleeper hit, like the song that like you could always go back and be like, you know what? I bet you had they released that as a single, it would have fucking
Yeah,
popped.
I agree.
Marcus, this whole album feels like a warm embrace of nostalgia, and that is such an incredible accomplishment considering what this band has gone through and how they've had to rebuild and reintroduce themselves, which I think is just sort of reiterating something that we've discussed already a lot up until this point, which is that them capturing the magic of Linkin Park, I don't think is easy. I can't imagine was easy, but I'm incredibly grateful that they were able to do it.
Before your last bullet, because you don't mention it by name, and I feel like we've talked about every single song, I Give You Everything I Have, I think is a very energetic, fun little track that I end up realizing is not the best track on this album by any means, but
That's how I feel
find
about-
myself really in love with it.
I feel similarly about I Gave You Everything I Had and Cut the Rope, which for me, they sort of exist on the same
Cut the
plane.
Bridge.
Cut the Bridge, yes. Which, like, I enjoy them, but, like, I certainly look at them and I go, oh, yeah, of course I would have picked Heavy as the Crown and The Emptiness Machine as singles over these two tracks. They fill out the album nicely, but I don't think they're at the level, nor do I enjoy them nearly as much as, like, a Casualty.
Yeah. As far as, like, you know, moments on this record digging themselves into my brain, though, on repeat, like every 5 minutes, I'll just hear, I gave you everything I had. Yeah, 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 yeah.
There's a high floor on this album, which is what goes to show that it's a pretty good album overall, right? Marcus, my final point, of course, is the closing track, which is the last one that we haven't mentioned either. Good Things Go, with its harmonizing between Mike Shinoda completely murdering his fucking verses, and then Emily coming in with a bridge built to last fucking ages, leading into a chorus that sticks in my head and triggers like an immediate emotional reaction. I think it's an absolutely incredible song. Mind-blowing closer. Our editor, Alex, messaged me, and he's like, I know you haven't heard the album yet. He got it like fucking 3 years earlier than I did. Somehow. And he's like, I think it's up there with Numb as one of my absolute favorite closers. And I'm like, man,
damn,
that point of comparison is absolutely insane. But I do agree with you that it is a very strong closer overall. I think the simplicity of like, sometimes bad things take the place where good things go is such a simple yet elegant line.
Yeah, I really like that one too.
Mm-hmm.
The whole song's impressive.
It's just like such a weight of emotion with that, using that as the closing track. It's like just the absolutely like, that as the closing song is perfect. And I guess that's it. Like, I guess that those are our feelings on I almost don't want it to end.
On
you know
a new
what I mean?
album from Linkin Park. I don't know about you. I had to replay From Zero like 3 times. And granted, it's a very short song. Nothing really happens on it.
It's
but
worth mentioning this is only 31 minutes, which like
Yeah.
on paper I looked at and I was like, God, that feels so short. But in listening to it and how easily repeatable
it's
is,
a very
I actually think it
lean
benefits
31 minutes.
Yeah, it's an efficient 31 minutes.
I pressed play on this album and I just kept saying out loud, a new Linkin Park album, a new Linkin Park album. I couldn't fucking believe it.
Right.
Just something we never thought we would get. Like you're saying, I wish this was never over. Again, everything is still so fresh. Like, this has really only been, like, Linkin Park has really only been back 2 months, and we just reviewed a new album of theirs. That's crazy.
It is crazy, but it's so exciting, right? And I want that excitement to stay, you know? So hopefully, like, this keeps going. Hopefully we get more music videos. Like, I don't want to be too greedy, but, you know, how quickly is this band going to put out new music? Like, it's hard to say. We already have a new world tour coming up next year.
So the interesting thing, too, is you mentioned Blink-182 earlier.
Yeah.
We had the One More Time Deluxe get released, right?
A deluxe is probably reasonably the thing we would see next year.
That's all I'm saying. Is
sooner than like a new song leading up to another album.
Landscape has shifted to deluxes in a way that we have not seen in a very long time. Like, deluxes were already sort of not a huge thing anymore, maybe for major label artists, but like Linkin Park never put out, you know, many deluxe albums. Like, I don't think Hunting Party got one. One More Light certainly didn't. But that's a possibility now, right, too? So, like, this band could theoretically be like, hey, here's 3 new songs, and here's 3 from that live stream we did that we recorded, right? So possibilities are endless. And what's even cooler, too, is, like, we've talked about all throughout this review, any of these songs could have been singles. Right now, Linkin Park are back on top of the world. We could keep this run going for however long this band chooses to. You talked about Stained being a dark horse single. Maybe it is. Maybe we get a video 3 months from now, right? Like, we could really keep the momentum up for as long as we want, and that's really exciting.
Finding out that they had recorded the music video for Two-Face before their first live performance with Emily, and then us then getting it as like the last single off the album is pretty incredible.
Crazy.
Marcus, but that's not the only album we reviewed this week.
Last but not least, Negative Spaces by Poppy.
While the sun is falling out, through the cracks in the parade, I watch you suffer and do nothing.
Key bullets here at the top. Poppy is an LA-based singer-songwriter who's been active since 2011, released their first EP in February of 2016. Negative Spaces is Poppy's 6th studio album, and it released the 15th of November. Poppy has been in an on-off relationship with Sumerian Records for the past 5 years, initially signing with the label in 2019 before leaving to Republic and Lava Records in 2022 for the release of their EP Stagger. Poppy then rejoined Sumerian in early 2023 and released last year's fascinating Zig LP. Negative Spaces was produced by the most talented man in the history of the universe. He's also very handsome, Jordan Fish, who officially departed Bring Me the Horizon at the top of this year and has since worked with other artists like the Almighty Architects and the exciting new House of Protection. Speaking of House of Protection, member Stephen Harrison, also ex-Fever 333, also plays a critical role on Negative Spaces, serving as a co-writer on every single track alongside both Jordan and Poppy. Poppy also collaborated on 2 of the most defining metalcore songs of 2023 so far.
I would argue they are the 2 defining songs for metalcore in 2024.
Which are Van
by Bad Omens with 34 million streams on Spotify right now, and the Grammy-nominated Suffocate with Knocked Loose, which has 16 million Spotify streams.
As of this recording, Poppy also claims 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify, close to it. They're sitting at 2.9, but with this record, I would guess they are going to get there. Some words from Poppy about the album via NME and Rishi Shah. I feel this record is some of the heaviest work that I've done, but it's also the most saccharine and sweet. There's a feeling I get when I'm sitting amongst the extremes that feels very whole to me. Poppy on being determined to and ultimately accomplishing their goal of tying down friends Stephen Harrison and Jordan Fish to work on the album. And I quote, "I really enjoy spending consistent, fixed time in the album process versus here and there creation. So you can hyperfixate on what you want to be doing," she explains. "I would say that we became closer. We got to go on adventures as well. I think the time spent away from the studio can be just as informative. What did such bonding time look like? It included escape rooms, bowling, Nerf guns. On Jordan's birthday, we all bounced on the trampoline."
Unbelievable amount of content that we have been robbed of. Like, how are you holding back an escape room with you, Jordan Fish, and Stephen Harrison in it?
This one also kind of hurts from the perspective of like really illuminating that it sounds like Poppy just needs a vacation. You know, the workhorse that she is, like, Poppy's like, man, and when we weren't in the studio, I really enjoyed going on hikes. That was pretty cool.
Nonsense. I feel like the implication here is team building.
It is team building, correct.
Right? It's developing relationships with the people you work with, both inside and outside the studio, and that's we'll talk about a little bit the product that manifested from that specifically.
Poppy continues. He, Jordan Fish, is such a creative force. Jordan is very good at tracking performance. We both have an appreciation for heavy music and more saccharine pop music. I think the commonalities in our tastes unite for this record. The beginning of an album process is micro experiments that I want to conduct to see where they take us. I came up with a mood board. I wanted a song that was pretty restless, or rather relentless, through and through. I wanted a more dance-oriented 80s synth pop song, and I knew I wanted the balls to the wall, never ceasing song. Beyond that, it wrote itself, which is such a crazy confident thing to kind of end on there.
That is so great. I'm also glad that I entirely picked up on exactly what Poppy was going for when listening to the album, as I had that exact note written later on.
With other people in the room, there's an energy there that propels that process forward. She says, looking back on taking Fish and Harrison with her on the journey. The feedback in the moment is important. Having people that you not only trust, but trust their taste. I much prefer it. I think Jordan and I have a lot left to explore.
Negative Spaces 2 locked in. Lock it the fuck in. 2025. We're just going back to back years.
Linkin Park was a shorter album. This Poppy album is a little longer, which is something I didn't expect. I think that Poppy's got one of the most underrated work ethics in this scene.
I don't know. I heard she was going to
stop.
escape rooms when she should have been in the studio. So I was like, who can say for sure?
Wrong. She was bowling when she should have been recording. Yes.
Right.
So
We could have gotten 10 more songs on this album had Poppy locked in.
this album announcement came as a huge surprise to me personally because Zig was released around this time last year too.
Yeah, it definitely came hot off the heels of Zig.
And before that, you know, I know they spent time with a different label, but like you release another EP and then you had other like singles, album the year before that, a year
Flux,
before that.
yeah.
It just feels very constant. Poppy has just always been a constant presence as far as talking about new music, dropping new records, on tour, all that stuff. And it culminating in a new like 15-track record is insane to me.
Right. Never mind that Poppy put out like a whole YouTube show around the release of this album as well.
That too. I don't really know where to begin here. I've got a couple of thoughts in that. One of the main things that really impressed me about this record, and there are a lot of things that did, is its pace. It starts off essentially with 3 like backbreakers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had enough? The cost of giving up. They're all around us. I've had a lot of time to think on it, and I think that They're All Around Us is a top 3 Poppy song, period.
It really is fucking phenomenal, isn't it?
It's fucking wonderful. It's everything I could possibly ask for from this artist. And what's crazy is like those first 3 songs are just one side of Poppy. And for the rest of this record, and this is why I commend its pace, we get to see 9 other different versions of Poppy. And this record moves along at such a perfect speed, despite all of that, that it's just something that impresses me.
I think Zig had a lot of versatility to it as well. And I was worried, based off of the singles that we had gotten leading up to this album, that we might have lost that. So I was pleasantly surprised when we get 5 songs deep and have something like Crystallize, which was the 80s dance anthem that Poppy was mentioning earlier on in the interview that you read. Preceded
by a really vulnerable, quieter song that, you know, when you go from They're All Around Us to that, it's definitely one of those things where you notice the temperature in the room change, and it doesn't stop the album in its tracks or anything, though. It just consistently moves along at a great pace. So you go from Yesterday into Crystallize, which is that 80s pop song, into like Vital and Push Go, and this album just continues to transform in a really cool way.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you get to another really heavy song and something like The Center's Falling Out. And then we get to something that I actually want to notate as much as I like how this album is constructed, I still think Hey There would have made the perfect intro, especially in its name alone being Hey There. And just how
because it feels like a literal introduction.
A world building introduction thing.
Sure. But to be fair, it does intro the title track of the album. So maybe there was some level of consideration there. I think there's a lot of depth to this album. And I think that the more time that you spend with it, the more things you'll be able to pick out of the decisions and the choices around like the track listing or like, some of the individual songs on here in particular. I think that, I don't want to get crazy, but I think this is one of the better albums I've listened to all year.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
I think there's so much depth to it. It's absolutely astounding.
I'll also say this, as much as I loved Zig, super happy with it, this is a better album, which I can't believe I'm saying.
It does feel a little bit that way as well, because I too loved Zig quite a bit.
And part of it is because we've barely touched on it, man. I think this whole time being like, you know, the 4 or 5 years that we've really been paying attention to Poppy. Again, I know they've been active since before then, but you signed with Sumerian initially, you drop I Disagree, that record, Concrete as a single, and I think we've been pretty up to date with Poppy ever since.
Sure,
following this artist's, you know, career, their trajectory, all that. And I think there's always been potential that's been untapped. And my man sitting directly behind us, audio listeners, Jordan Fish, a photo of him, not him literally, really helped unlock a lot of that potential.
I think if this is the showcase, alongside House of Protection of what Jordan Fish intends to bring to the rest of this scene outside of Bring Me the Horizon, where he now exists, that is going to be a fruitful another decade of scene music on the way. I mean, the week that you're listening to this, we're going to have a brand new single from Architects, and it appears that band is continuing to work with Jordan Fish as well.
Previously working on their last single, Curse.
They also have what appears to be maybe an interview or a cover story coming out with Rock Sound. This is Architects. Which
He's announcing
makes
Bring Me the Horizon 2.
think that they will be announcing a brand new album, which in theory, if that album is Architects, recorded with Jordan Fish.
I thought you were saying Jordan Fish had his own cover story coming?
Architects, which I did specify had you been listening. Wow. That being said, circling back, I do understand where you're coming from with the comparison to the Zig, where it does feel like this is maybe a little bit more cohesive and a little bit more focused than that album was, where I really liked the variety on that, but then the variety here still feels like it's a little bit, it's encased a little better, all in the same sort of like general tone or atmosphere or maybe Jordan Fish's style keeps everything sort of interconnected.
What I think it is, as much as it is his style and all that, I think Poppy is working with someone who is as like flexible as they are, in the sense of like, Poppy mentioned it earlier, like sometimes they want a song to sound really saccharine. Other times they want it to be really in your face and abrasive and all that.
Right. And if you look at the work that Jordan Fish did with Bring Me the Horizon, you can understand why he would see the vision.
Well, right. It's someone who excels in any genre whatsoever.
I think an interesting anomaly here is Stephen Harrison from House of Protection. And that he seems to almost come attached to Jordan Fish as well.
I kind of love that. I'm curious how much that continues. Obviously, like Poppy mentions Jordan by name as far as like wanting to continue with working with him in the future. I'd like to see Steven continue to be incorporated in that too.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like this little triple group of artists right here. The fruits of their labor have made an album that you and I like thoroughly enjoy now. I did have a lot of thoughts about this one as well, some scattered stuff that I had written down that we can kind of bounce off of for discussion here, Marcos. I think Crystallize and Negative Spaces, those two tracks in particular, show again that Poppy has a real deep versatility that's still on display here, that carries over from all of her work up until this point. And I think those two tracks were a really good job of contrasting a lot of the other the rest of this album beautifully. Because like you said, we start off with like 3 heavier tracks, so it's almost like we're setting a very specific tone, and then we pivot completely from there, and we jump around a little bit more. And I think those two tracks do the best job of showing like the spectrum that Poppy can capture. Crystallize in particular, flexing that pop muscle, the 80s dance anthem, was a real standout for me on this record. Like it reminded me of what I loved from Zig.
Yes.
And Negative Spaces just feels like a side of Poppy that I think maybe none of us are entirely familiar with up until this point. And she absolutely nails the overall pop punk feeling of that song.
Poppy punk?
Yeah, precisely correct. Yeah. Those keys, Marcus, at the top of the cost of giving up are truly peak. On the road to a sea of gorgeous melodies that are also qualifying as peak as well. That little bleh in there all around us.
Yeah.
Makes
that shit goes crazy.
An arguably perfect metalcore song. Arguably perfect metalcore song.
We also got like the echo of it too, to like really punctuate it. Yeah, I really liked seeing Poppy. I think they've always had like a heavier side, but they really embraced it on this album, and it is really fun to watch them sort of navigate that throughout this record.
Yeah, agreed.
And they excel frequently. This has some of the it is going to sound crazy for some people who aren't as familiar with Poppy's game, but Poppy's got some of the fucking best metalcore music on this album of the year.
Yeah, I honestly feel that way as well. Poppy's an outrageously good screamer, absolutely devastating delivery over the course of this album. And I think it really helps solidify them as one of the better metalcore vocals in the scene. So it's like, you got that little taste. You got that little taste with Suffocate, right?
Yeah.
Van to some degree as well, but specifically Suffocate.
Well, it's both sides, right? Because Poppy themselves are a very dynamic vocalist. So,
but I'm talking about like the nastier, heavier side of metalcore. Like Suffocate was this like Poppy, almost like an introduction to Poppy of what would come, right?
Sure.
Like
no, but
what
I'm
you
saying,
could
like,
expect with the album.
I think you get both of those sides on a track like They're All Around Us.
That's a fair point. And then something like The Center's Falling Out, Marcos feels like a cutting room floor take from Poppy's time recording Suffocate with Knocked Loose.
Yes.
Like it's an unfucking earthly beast of a song. It truly feels like Poppy was in the studio that day and she's like, I think I got another one in me if you don't mind.
See, we're going to go bowling first, but we're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the idea that she went bowling with Knocked Loose too. I think that's really fun. Marcos, Surviving on Defiance has Jordan Fish's fins all over it, and thus coincidentally is a massive pop rock song with a gorgeous electronic element.
That's one of my quiet favorites on this record. Like,
Yeah.
if you ask me to like list a top 5, that one definitely sneaks in there.
You start getting outside of singles, and The Center's Falling Out might have been a day and date single. I can't remember. But The Center's Falling Out and Surviving on Defiance are absolutely massive, and they're like both sides of the coin.
Yep.
Mark, speaking of electronic elements, Tomorrow is pure bliss and completely haunting.
Well, it's cool to see Poppy then lean into the Poppy character a bit on a track like that, and they're definitely being vulnerable, but it's like a more robotic version of Poppy that's like very emblematic of like the persona that is Poppy that we see on like these Poppy YouTube
And
videos.
probably
and
Poppy,
things like,
right.
yeah, right. But like Poppy being sincere and being like, I like performing, and it just like very like no bullshit, like just kind of mentioning things, but like, so it's not really a song, but it ends up being a very fascinating part of this record.
Right, and it makes it feel a little bit more cinematic.
Yeah.
Marcus, and I thought Halo was a deeply beautiful closer. It's wistful, it's hopeful. I think it's a perfect swan song for this album, like a final send-off.
Halo's a good track. I like that. And it doesn't really feel like 15 tracks either. We don't have it numerized over here, but I believe it was like 14 or 15 tracks total. I really liked Nothing as well. It's just a really...
Overall, I really liked every song on this
Yeah,
album. I actually think
it's impressive.
it's an incredible accomplishment from start to finish.
I keep pinching myself because myself and I.
Sure.
Because I can't believe I like this album more than Zig. Like I had my hesitations thinking like it's too quick a turnaround for a new album. It can't all be this good after like hearing all the singles and enjoying all of them. And then you listen to this whole album and you're like, not only is it all good, it's great, and it's better than Zig. So bravo is all I can say. Poppy did an excellent job on this album, and so did everyone else who contributed. Jordan Fish and Stephen Harrison are fucking talented. And we all knew it, but like, damn, this continues to put it in perspective when you listen to an album like this one.
On the same day that Linkin Park released an album, I think Poppy absolutely held their ground.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's been an episode, everybody. If you sign up to Patreon, you'll get the deluxe episode this week as well, talking about that new track from Idola, talking about that new track from One OK Rock. We love you. We appreciate your support. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Good luck.